let's start talking about Joju George. A new face for us, man. We've not seen this guy. But
No,
holy crap, I'm happy I saw this guy. This guy's performance was insane. What did you think about it, man?
my God, man, this performance just absolutely blew me away because I think first and foremost, yeah, he's playing twins, but each of those twins, Vinod and Pramod, I think they're the two characters, they are just really well-defined characters in their own right. They aren't just like guys with little quirks, so you know that one is Vinod and one is Pramod. They are just two well-developed characters who stand on their own. And the way that Joju is able to move seamlessly between both of those characters absolutely blows my mind. I know which character he's playing without the character
Yeah,
saying a word, without their names being spoken, without any guidance at all, because the way he carries both of those characters
yeah.
is so distinct, so different. What he's able to do physically to show which of those two characters he is just absolutely blew me away, man. Like, I am stunned by how good
Yeah.
this performance is. Just, it never stopped being amazing to me throughout the whole course of this film.
No, exactly, man. You bring up that's right. Like it's all through just mannerisms. Like
Yeah,
it's the way that he looks. It's the way that one's sort of more rough and tough around the edges, and one's also kind of the same, but not exactly. You know,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
they're not completely different. That's obvious that which each character is. It's like there's subtleties, but it's all through like the actions rather than like clothes they're
Yes.
wearing or like like one has a scar on their face or a different haircut or something like that.
No.
It's all
It
just done through performance.
You look at someone like Vinod, right? And he's a menacing guy, the way he walks,
Yeah,
the way he like stands in front of people, even his fellow police colleagues are
yeah,
fearful of him. And it's not just because of what he says or how threatening he talks. It's just that kind of lumbering presence, that domineering attitude he has. He is a terrifying dude. I would not want to get on the bad side of that
no,
guy ever. And I understand why no one wants to like call him out on all of the heinous stuff that he's doing. He's a terrifying dude. And that is all just physical acting, right? Without him ever saying a
yeah,
word. And then you've got the Promote character who's a bit quieter. He's basically a very serious guy. I don't know if he smiles at all during this movie. And he
no,
doesn't have that
yeah,
like intimidating nature at all. But there's a lot going on and there's a lot of things that he's working through, a lot going on in his head. The
yeah,
facial expressions convey his sense of desperation, trying to figure out what happened to his brother, trying to mend his relationship with his family. But all of that, it's just in the face and in the body language of Vinod.
yeah.
It is just a masterclass in acting, man.
Yeah, no, it's like he's almost in grief the whole movie. I think like he's just
Yes.
grieving throughout the entire movie. Like every scene we see him in, there's no flamboyance at all. It's completely like monotone. Someone who's just beaten down in life for everything.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
there's no joy at all with what he's going
No
through,
joy.
and to make matters worse, he has to deal with this execution of his brother,
Yes.
which is very startling. So yeah, man, it was a pretty incredible performance from him. I will say backed up by some very capable supporting cast.
Yes.
Um, I'll say while not everyone has such defined roles in this,
Yes.
the story is about really the death of Vinod
Yes.
and some other sort of parts around that. I think everyone else around him, the other detective, the lady detective,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
Milani, all the cops involved that were basically part of the suspect list all
Yes.
did a great job in just sort of supporting and just being like solid actors, solid performers. I really
100%.
like that.
Everyone just did their job to perfection.
Yeah,
And can I say, like, I think the other standout performance here is probably that Malini character
yeah,
because
yes,
she goes on a bit of a journey, I think. Like, when you meet her through the flashback, she's this broken woman going through a
yeah,
cycle of physical abuse from her husband. And even when she gets saved by Vinod, she's pretty distrustful of him, doesn't want to kind of spend like too much time with him, doesn't know what his motives are. And eventually you just see their
mhm,
relationship blossom and she starts to like smile a little bit. And, a smile on her face is worth more than,
yeah,
anything that any other character does because of what she's gone through. But again, here is a actress who does all of that without saying a whole lot, man. I reckon you could count
Barely
on
anything.
two hands how many lines she has. But
Yeah.
the way she communicates her grief, the sense of fear she has, the sense of loss, and the hope that then she has with this Vinod character, and then to have it stripped away at the end, like such a tragic arc she goes through, but
Mm.
all of that done just through visual acting and through your body language. Just, I thought she blew me away in her own respect, man.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that as well. She was pretty impressive in just the fact that she didn't have any lines, barely any
Yeah,
lines.
that's it.
Honestly, you're right. It might be on one hand as amount of lines she had. It was I can't
Yeah,
recall her saying too much at all, but she had a lot of screen time. Like she was
yes,
there, and even a part of it. I think Pramod is also similar, right? Like at the start of the
yes,
movie, the
good point.
first like 15 minutes, he doesn't. He has a phone call, and then it's just silence for such a
He's
long
just,
period of time.
yes,
Um, and yet they're still able to carry the narrative forward without much talking, without exposition, no dialogue, and you know exactly what's going to happen here. And they build the sense of tension, they build a mystery,
yes,
so well. And right from the start, it's yeah, a lot of these movies are like so because it's not there's nothing so flashy in this kind of movie, right? It's obviously a pretty
100%.
low budget kind of movie. So in these movies,
Yes,
and we've said this a few times about Malayalam movies in general, there has to be a strong emphasis on performance because
yes,
it's just highlighted so much.
yes,
Poor delivery from one of the actors, you can sense it straight away, or like
yeah,
bad chemistry between some of them, you can see something's not right here because every scene is crucial. Every
100%.
act is crucial. Every single character is crucial, and they all just
Yeah.
knocked it out of the park. But yeah, man, it was pretty I'm a big fan of this Joju George guy, man. It's surprised we've not seen anything from him, but full respect
I'm
to this guy.
It's amazing. Like the industry must just have so many high caliber actors, man. Like we've seen a few
Ah,
Malayalam films now, never seen any of his
no,
work, and the first thing we see, we're absolutely blown away. And I'm
yeah,
sure if we look at his catalog of films, we'll see more amazing performances. But
yeah,
just another guy who is top tier acting, right? Like this isn't just an
yeah.
okay performance. This is like breathtakingly good. It's a masterclass in its own way. So it's not just solid
Yeah,
actors.
it's
These are guys who are at the top of their craft.
definitely it's gut wrenching. It's emotional. It's he packs everything in there. It's aggressive. He has good action scenes in this as
Yes.
well. Like there's one
Yes.
great action scene actually. So he's obviously he can do a lot, and also we a little bit off Mike. I didn't know how to broach this one up, but he's definitely not your stereotypical you know Hollywood or Bollywood flashy actor, right? Like I don't
No.
think I really think only the Malayalam industry has the guts to do something like this and put somebody that looks like, Joju George, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way, but like
No,
a
no. Yeah, yeah,
overweight
yeah.
big guy. He's not a Tom Cruise. He's not a Brad Pitt. He's not a Hrithik Roshan. Like
No.
he
No.
is who he is. He's realistic and relatable. But that's
That
amazing that they do this. Like they have
I
no
love
fear.
that.
Yeah, it's
The
awesome.
authenticity of this film and the last few
Yeah,
Malayalam films we've watched is just I think that's what really makes these films so impactful, that these characters feel real, the world that they're in feels real, and so the impact of everything going on screens feels real. Like you forget you're watching a movie. This could be a story
yeah,
that is playing itself out. As sensational as some elements of this story are, and we'll get to that
yeah.
a bit later, this feels like a something that could happen in a village in Kerala or a town in
Yeah.
Kerala. These could be real characters and we're just following their lives. And I just absolutely love that authenticity. And I think that is something this film nails as well, because as you're saying,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of flashiness to any elements of this film, whether
No.
we're talking about cinematography or like the writing or the action or anything. It's all very real. It's very muted. And I don't think it's because they lack the skill to do extraordinary things. I think it's a
No.
conscious choice to make this a grounded film and to tell just a story that is engaging in its own right and doesn't need all of those flourishes.
It really is, man. This is like one of the most gripping movies that
Yes,
I've even compared to some of the other movies we watched. I was like edge of your seat from the start to the end.
100%.
Um,
Was never bored watching this.
no, definitely. Which brings us a good transition to sort of the genre of this movie and the murder
Yeah.
mystery element of this, man. Like I am always a fan of murder
Love
mysteries
it.
or sort of noir style of movies. And I don't think we've seen a Malayalam one that does this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
Yes.
we've seen a.
No, I
We've
don't
seen
think
a lot
so.
of different
Yeah.
genres, so let's add this one to the list as well. Now
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
a noir murder mystery Malayalam movie, and yeah, like it's I start with what I mentioned before. Also a little bit with the pacing, man. This movie straight in,
Straight
like
in.
it's like I will say that like I don't know if it's my favorite scene, but it's one of the probably the only time I laughed in this entire movie. The start of this movie, the kids playing cricket and
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the dog's a wicket keeper.
I love that. And that they expect that the dog will just fetch and be
Yeah,
efficient. Like, it's
yeah,
not a human being. You can't expect that much of this
no,
dog. Love
but
it.
just seeing the dog behind the kids just while they're playing cricket cracked me up. But that was the only probably laugh I had throughout this movie because then it just
Fair.
goes straight into it, right? Like you just like the gunshot start and you're in the mystery straight away. You're like, whoa,
Absolutely.
who did
And
this?
even before the gunshots, maybe there's like a 5 minute kind of start to
Yeah.
this where things are just slowly building, right? There's some kind of
Mm.
police ceremony that's being filmed. The
Yes, yes,
journalists
yes.
start arriving and get their cameras
Mm.
out. The audience is sitting down. The kids are playing cricket. And you just get this slow sense of like uh, brooding darkness
Yep.
that something is about to go off. And then suddenly 3 shots go off and it all just hits the ground running from that. But just the tension is there from day dot. Like from the first scene, you get this sense that something's about to go wrong and you're just waiting and it happens so quickly. It grips you and it never lets you go.
No, it's like basically we hear the gunshots, and I think the next is just about like who did this basically, and just
Yeah, yeah,
around
yeah.
interviewing. Then you start to learn more about the Vinod character and that journey that we go on. Basically, that is like a roller coaster, right? Like
Oh, man.
it's definitely not in some ways it's one dimensional that they're really portraying how bad this guy is until we sort of see it later. But yeah, how they sort of demonstrate how bad Vinod is in the community and how feared he is. I think they
Yes.
did that fantastically. It's just like a series
Flawlessly.
of like stories, right?
Yeah, and the stories that were so well integrated into the plot because the stories
Yes.
came from the 3 main suspects, right? Who
Yeah.
all had a grievance to maybe kill him. And so
Uh-huh.
it feels so seamlessly done that they're like, "Oh, well, why do you just have you got a history with Vinod?" And then they tell a story and
Yes.
you're like, "Oh, wow, he did that." Then the next guy has a history with Vinod, then you discover another element to some heinous thing he does. And then the third guy, and I just thought it was really well done rather than one person just sitting there being Binod's done this, this, and
Hmm.
this. He sounds like a bad guy. It was
Yeah.
just really well integrated into the murder mystery.
Definitely. And the way they expressed each one, right, was pretty cool. Like I think like again, like while this movie's not flashy, they work within the confines of what they sort of have and they create really memorable scenes. Like I mentioned the action scene. This guy,
Yes.
Joju George, is probably an underrated action star, to be honest. And the way they shot that scene where he's finding the other cop in the canteen for the
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the mess or whatever it is, the
Yes.
where he's eating and he kicks the table while he's got like a like roti in his hand or something like that.
Oh,
It's
I thought that was so well done. And like the scene went on for so long. I thought it would just be like a couple of punches, but it was
yeah,
like an extended shot of them just like creating absolute havoc in this canteen mess area. And like he has a
yeah.
physical presence, man. Joju George. He
Oh
is
man,
a
yeah,
scary
man,
dude. Like I would not want to mess
yeah,
with
yeah.
him. And it goes to
No
show
way.
how he's managed to get away with so much in the police force and so many terrible things he's done.
Yeah,
But and then how he casually just washes his hand at the end and just walks off. I'm just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
this guy is a menace, dude, completely unhinged.
But even the way they shot this, like we've been complimentary of the editing of Malayalam editing, but like
Mm,
this is a scene that in Hollywood, I swear to God, would have been jump cut crazy. Like it would have just
yes,
been like flash, flash, flash.
yes,
Making really giving all the excuses you can for the actor not being able to actually pull off any action scenes. That's why I'm saying
yes,
this guy's a legit action star because they filmed this
yes,
all in one shot from different angles, and he's throwing bodies around. He's portraying everything you have to in this action scene. It's
yes.
pretty impressive. So yeah,
Really
those kind
is.
of moments, because like this movie, while the pacing is great and everything like that, like you just in that moment, you're just watching that and blown away by what's
Yes.
happening there, right? You're like,
Yeah, yeah,
wow,
yeah.
what did I just see? Before you go on to the next scene.
Yes, that's right. And like you never really know what's going to happen next with this film. And I find that
No,
it's completely unpredictable and we'll get to the ending, but every step of the way I don't really know what's the next element of this, and there's no part of this where I ever felt I knew what was going to happen in this film or that I had the solution to what was the main mystery in
Yeah.
this film. Just absolutely loved how this was done, man. Like, completely
No, I was
unpredictable.
on the same boat, man. I was like, it keeps you guessing I think the whole way through. But definitely, like I did not see the ending coming, which
No.
we keep teasing you guys and telling you guys we're going to get to it, but we're holding ourselves back here. But essentially, yeah, you sort of just keep guessing because at the start I was like, okay, which of these three cops did it?
Yep.
And but they still want to make sure you understand the character of Vinod to have some
Yes.
kind of impact, why
Yes.
he died. Because I think if
Yes.
they ignore all that character building that they do, it becomes the impact is so much less, you know.
That's
I
right.
think they invested the time properly to one keep you engaged and intrigued as to what's happening, but also build up character and understanding and later on empathy and all these other
Yes.
things that come about.
Remarkably. Yes.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. Now this movie does do things a little bit differently. I felt like compared to sort of more
Mm.
traditional, obviously Hollywood movies, in that it does take almost two approaches where they show us like the general noir side of things, the murder mystery side of things, but then they
Yep.
take like a moment where they just stop right in the middle this time and they just show us like a flashback, like when you were kids, and
Yeah.
that itself is
Yes.
executed beautifully, the whole black and white. Um,
Beautiful.
Before that, and then we sort of see the character journey and the emotional growth of this character. Basically, after he's committed the worst crime of all and raped the girl, who we find
Yes.
out later
Yes.
on who she is. But what did you think about that whole sort of pacing and how it sort of stops in the middle? Were you a fan of that? Did you like how that went on?
I think so. I did like the kind of flashbacks that started occurring from halfway on
Yeah,
because I think in the first half of this film, you'd be forgiven for having a very one-dimensional view of who Vinod is because everything you
yeah,
see, this guy is a pretty evil character. I think you can safely say he's not a good person in any way. Not to say that any of the other characters even promote are black and white and clear good
no,
people.
no,
But Vinod, you're just like, this guy's a relentlessly evil dude. And then the flashbacks start happening and you kind of start understanding why he is the way he is. None of that excuses the crimes, but I think they do such a good job of slowly getting you to feel empathy for this character.
yes,
And it almost feels appalling in a way, but you feel sorry for what happens to him at the end because
yeah,
he's almost on this journey of redemption and his past catches up with him. But the way they're able to kind of rebuild this character after completely knocking him down and making him feel like the worst person alive
yeah,
to slowly building him up and giving you an understanding of why he is the way he is. I think that is just so well done, man. And I think,
yeah,
maybe we'll get to this later, but a key element of this film is about childhood trauma and how that affects
yes,
people, right? That
yeah,
is what these flashbacks, particularly the black and white ones, about what they go through as kids, both Vinod and Pramod. It leaves lasting legacies for these kids that they're living, more so for Vinod than Pramod, because Pramod was able to get out with his mum. But the kind of sense of
yeah,
abandonment Vinod feels is a chip that he's always carrying on his shoulder. And he has
yeah,
essentially, while they're twins, I don't feel like these guys have any
no,
relationship in any way that you would suggest that they're brothers or family in any way other than they are twins by looking at them.
yeah,
And that just plays out so well and so powerfully, I think, that in a few shots, you're able to establish the impact of those decisions and the impact of their family life so quickly and start giving some grounding to this Vinod character. So I love that kind of change of pace from the
yeah,
middle onwards, man, because it makes everything that has happened at the start, meaning the death of Vinod, so much more impactful. And then the
yeah,
ending comes around and that hits you so hard because of now
yeah.
what you know about his upbringing.
Yeah, it's now there is a lot of clever themes built into this movie. Like the childhood trauma is probably one of the biggest ones. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I also really liked how they did that because they hit you off basically at the start, and you see Vinod, you know, they basically laid on the floor, and then you see how much of a bad character he is, and what he's done, and he's just menacing.
Yes.
He's 100% evil. Like for
Yeah,
the first
100%.
30 minutes, right? He's just like beating up cops. He's raping women. He's he's doing everything you can to just get away with the power he has.
Completely
both
unhinged.
physically, yeah, both physically and just just because his presence is so big, he's able to
Yes.
take down everyone. But then it just takes you. It just says like, stop, wait, let's take you back right here. The very first scene when they're kids is like they're playing, some game, which I think is
Yeah.
common in India. What's the name? I forgot it's
I
a
haven't
common
seen that one
game.
before. Right,
Yeah, it's
okay.
like when we have to build up bricks or something like that, while being chased by a ball. But then you see, like at the wayside, they're just innocent kids. Like they're both on the same level.
Yeah.
They're the same kids almost. They have a relationship
Yeah, yeah,
at that
yeah.
point, and you just see like these
Yes.
moments that just come and break them apart, tragically. In
Yes.
just terrible ways, and it obviously hits way more. But it
Yes.
does. I do sort of like how they sort of, again, credit to Joju George because he goes through everything in this movie, just as Vinod. Like,
Yes.
he goes through
Yeah.
the most evil character. He goes through basically redemption, and we follow the whole journey through, and he has to emote and show us everything on that because, like, his path to coming back is actually really beautiful. It's actually, you start to see this and you start to really empathize for him, and you start to really, you almost are on his corner because that's how well they've done this
Yes.
movie, where you almost
Y
forget about all the bad stuff
Everything
he's
he's done
done.
before. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because the
just
film has now kind of given him layers that you can kind of understand,
yeah,
and I think that's, like, such a so beautifully done, and credit to the actor here who's just able to
yeah.
portray, who can go from that real evil character to a guy you can empathize with without saying very much, doing very much. And there's some beautiful lines in here, I think, that the director,
Oh
who might
yeah,
also be the writer of this, but he has
yes,
moments where, you start by thinking he has no remorse for anything he does, Vinod, the character. But then when he's talking to Malini outside the house, he's like,
yeah,
I'm filthy. He says something along the lines of, I'm
yes,
filthy. I
that's
don't
it.
deserve anything. And so you understand that he has got some conception that he has done some wrong things and that he's not a good person. And he almost feels like that is just his fate because of what has happened to him as a child
Yeah,
and where life has led him. And so there is that degree of introspection, and he almost says it with a smile, and your heart just breaks a little bit because you're like, this guy
yeah,
feels like he has no other choice than to act the way he does and to be the person he does. That's just the part that fate has created for him. And he's able to kind
yeah.
of do all of these shades of this character so flawlessly, man. It's amazing.
It's definitely is, man. Yeah, director and writer Rohit Krishnan. So all credit to
Amazing,
Rohit
dude.
Krishnan. This was fantastically done. He definitely has some lines, and it's like the movie. I think is quite subtle in how they sort of build him back up because you see he doesn't just transform overnight or anything like that, right? He's still
Precisely.
making mistakes. He's never. It's like he's never sort of interacted in a way which you should with a woman at all. Because like he takes this woman back who's at his mercy
Yes.
basically,
I was just about to
and he
say,
acts
yes.
inappropriately. Um, but then he comes back, and even that scene when he sees her again, and he's genuinely saying, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Like, if you want to
That won't happen
come
again.
back. If not, yeah, that won't happen. If you come back, it won't happen again." And I was like,
Yes.
"Wow, this is again the authenticity and the dedication to keeping it real is there,
Yes.
right? Like that's how it would be. He wouldn't just transform and suddenly see her be mesmerized and then be like, I'm transformed into something
That's
that
right.
I'm not. There's a journey to that,
Exactly.
and he still struggles at that time as well. But then it's like this nice blossoming of love that they
Yes.
have, which I thought was beautiful, man.
I thought it really did. It was beautifully done. And again, can I say that was done in a short amount of time, that blossoming
Yes,
of the relationship,
yeah,
but it hit with all of the, like, reality of a long
yeah,
romance, or if it had been done across 90 minutes as a romance film, right? It felt
yes,
so real and so intimate. And I immediately bought into the affection they felt for one another. And it didn't take a
yeah,
whole lot. There was a beautiful song in there. There was some
yes,
montages of him dropping stuff off, helping her cleaning her childcare
yeah,
facility. Just small things like that just had hit with such authenticity that, yeah, that relationship was so beautiful. And to see how it blossoms and then kind of ends abruptly, it's such an
yeah.
emotional roller coaster, man.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. No, that combination of that song with the montage,
Yeah,
that
it
was. I
hits
mean,
hard.
that is the beauty of sort of this. That's something that Malayalam cinema and I think in general probably Indian cinema does much better than
I think you're
Hollywood
right.
can do. Like as much as you can get out of a montage is almost looked down upon in
Yes.
Hollywood movies. But with the fusion of the music with the montage and the character growth just through that short period of time, you get
Yeah.
so much out of it because you get a beautiful song, you get a strong emotional connection. You get
Yes.
you see the character go from he gets more confidence, he starts to feel better about himself. You actually see him smiling a bit at that time, right? And genuinely smiling, like he's actually
Yes.
happy with his life for
Genuine
once.
joy. Yeah.
So it's and it's beautiful. Like
Beautiful.
he's on the other side, he's helping her. Like she's also getting joy and seeing
Yeah.
like there's
Yes.
some beauty in my life come back at least somehow.
That's
So
right.
fantastic,
And
man.
let's reflect on the fact we're talking about this film as like a noir film, a murder mystery, and
Yeah,
then somehow we're saying it's
yeah,
beautiful that there's a love song in the middle of it, and it seems
it's
completely normal, and like we're
yeah.
not thinking like, oh, that's a weird thing to insert into a film noir
No,
or a murder mystery. It's just done so beautifully and authentically that I entirely bought into it.
you're exactly right. No, you almost forget that it's a noir movie during that little
Yeah, yeah,
flashback,
that
like
little, yeah,
because like
that's it.
the first part is intentionally very noir. Even with the soundtrack and the music, it's very
Y-
stereotypical
yes, and
noir. You're
what's
like, all
being
right, I know what's going
portrayed?
on. Yes,
Grim,
murder.
dark stuff, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
Well,
Uh,
death.
yeah, death. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And one of the things you're talking about that relationship, one of the questions I had was, why is she the one that he feels so passionately about? Like
Mm,
that was a question I had. That what about
yeah.
her made him go on this journey and want to become a better man for her sake? And I think the answer I landed on was that there's a degree of innocence and purity about her that maybe he has not
Yeah.
seen in other people, because he talks about other people who've stayed at his house and he said they're all filthy as well, so they never stay beyond a day, and I'm
Yes.
filthy, but she has stayed more time and she is somehow special, and maybe he recognizes a little bit of the brokenness in her that he sees in himself, and he wants to help and rebuild her life. And that's the thing that starts him on this journey, because it doesn't feel entirely selfish from his end. It's not like he
No.
wants her to be there with him all the time. He's just trying to build her up and give her a home that she can have, and she's free to leave at any time. But it seems to be a genuinely selfless thing, and that's where you really start turning around on your perception of the
Mm,
Vinod character. You see that he's capable of selflessness, that he isn't a purely kind of
yeah.
malevolent character, and it's just so well done, man.
No, it really is. We don't get to know much about his upbringing, right? Like we get to know the point where it ends off is him running away into the field. So I don't know if he grew up just on the streets, which might have been the case because his father was evil and he passed away, and we know what happened with
Yeah.
Pramod, who grew up with his mother. It seems like so he obviously
Yes.
his connection with people must have been very grim. So his view on people in general must have just been horrible. Like he must have just been treated badly his whole life, I guess. So to say that makes a lot of sense. Um,
100%.
because yeah, he goes full domestic, doesn't he? He buy-
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's like making stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, that's right.
He's in
That's
the
right.
kitchen. Yeah, yeah. So he really transforms really well. But it's quite touching, man. Which makes it all the more terrifying when we sort of have to go through towards the end of this movie, man.
Yeah, dude.
Oh
Far out.
boy, the last
This is
the last 25 minutes or so in this movie, when you go back into the world of Pramod, and he's like, "Look, let me help, this case and find out what's
Yeah,
happening."
yeah, yeah.
That itself, the way that is done is so well executed. It's like, you know, you when that scene starts again, it's like you're just on the, you're on the downward roller coaster part where you're just like, this is going so fast and so crazy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
it's showing you all the things that's happening between each of the cops. He talks to each of them and finds out their different stories.
Yes.
Um, and it is just so well done. But what do you think, man, about the whole way it was executed?
Wow, man, I think that was just so, like, the momentum towards that last 25 minutes, you just didn't know what was happening. It all was moving
Yeah.
so quickly, and, like, the investigation gets resolved fairly quickly once Pramod decides, "All right,
Yep.
Imma step in here. I'm gonna step in here." And just, like, all of the things you see that have been built up throughout the course of the film suddenly come to fruition because the kids come back into it. The kids who are
Yeah, yeah.
playing cricket, right? You knew that they were gonna maybe have a role to
Yes.
play in this. The journalists with the cameras, you knew that someone had to have footage
Yes.
that might be relevant. Like all the way the pieces kind of fell into place so confidently and quickly at the end, it was just like an inevitable thing. But I think when you realize kind of, and we're going in towards the end of the film in the
Yeah, yeah.
climax here, like when I think you hear that it's a suicide, it felt so anticlimactic to me because I was like, "Ah,
Yes.
we did all of these investigations and what, the guy just killed
Uh-huh.
himself? That's a bit lame."
Uh.
But then that kind of just sets you up for the next
Yeah.
roller coaster because you're like, "Oh no, it's about to get 10 times worse than just
Yeah.
plain suicide." But it was just slow, flawlessly done, man. And I think it's a credit to like the Pramod character that he's obviously a very
Yeah.
switched on cop, right? He's a very diligent cop and that's part of his identity. And as soon as he's able to get involved, he's able to step in there and kind of do right and figure it out so quickly. So you see that part of Pramod because I think he's a leader in the police force, or he
I
has
think
some
so.
leadership position. And you
Yeah.
finally see, okay, this guy's not just someone who's grieving about his wife and daughter who aren't hanging out with him anymore. He's like this other amazing cop who can solve mysteries and stuff. And you just see that coming into full fruition, man. It just escalated so quickly. Then there was a small break where you're like, just suicide. And
Mhm.
then
Yes.
big thing happens and you're like, holy crap, you're just reeling. Amazing, dude.
Yeah, man. Again, like Joju George, he just puts the other hat on and he just goes right into it, right? Like
Yeah, yes.
it's really incredible that he's able to just keep switching back and forth like this, man. Like he portrays
Oh,
that, like, he goes into, like, the fierce leader of a cop in the division so well, where he's just interrogating people viciously at times, and
yeah,
he's
yeah,
just
yeah.
breaking them down one by one. So it's really, really well done. And you're right, it is just like beat after beat. You're like, wait, so it's not this guy? Wait, it's not this guy? It's not this guy.
Yes.
And then you are right, it is a bit like, I mean, the funniest part was the I think the prisoner that was stuck in it.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
like, what's this? Tell me it's not
it's
him.
like,
And it just has some.
yeah, I was like, it can't be just a random killing from some, prisoner, and then, like, what luck, huh? What luck, he manages to get
Yeah,
out, and then and
only to
he's stuck in
be forced
he
back.
puts himself, he puts himself back in after.
That is,
I
and
found
so,
that,
and that's one of the great parts of this film. There's so many different elements going on. Some of
yeah,
them
yeah,
significant, some of them just misdirects, and you're just kind of
yeah,
waiting for it to all come together, and it does so
yeah,
beautifully and unexpectedly.
definitely no. And then, like, when you're right about the whole suicide thing, because I was like, okay, well, all right, it was a suicide, fine. Like, it looked like the clues that they were showing. It's not one of these cops. They've all told their stories and where they were, so it's got
Yes,
to be a suicide. But my mind went straight to, like, but why would kill himself? Like, what have
yes,
they shown us? What have they done here? His life's been on track, because, like, that, like, the unfortunate situation that happened with the girl before. It's almost just brushed aside, right? Like, it's
yeah,
like he's just in the mix of the chaos at the start. Like, he's beating up cops. He's he's drunk and putting his bike up for sale in a gambling thing. Then he's
yeah,
doing this
yeah, yeah,
hideous crime. Then he's going on an adventure to see his brother's wife, who's left him. So
yeah.
they've put all this stuff in there, so you almost just forget about that scene,
Yes,
because it's just like
it's a
fast
good
forwarding
point.
so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah,
So you're
yeah.
like, did that happen? I can't even remember that happened. And then then you find out later, as to the motivations as to why it happened, and that is another whole just journey in itself, man. Oh my god, that was like a
That
mind, yeah, just
just
screwed me over.
absolutely floors you, man. That's it could not have
Yeah,
seen
man.
that
What did
coming in a
you?
million years.
Yeah, man. Like, I was in the same boat. I could not have seen that coming at all. It's one of those movies. Like, it's very delicate with movies that have all these twists and turns, because you put yourself in
Yes,
a situation where you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense, or like, wait, there's a hole here, or why would this character do this? There's so
yes,
many areas where this can go wrong, and it's such a
yes.
hard thing to get right. And this movie nailed it on so many levels, because,
Ah,
like, it's like, after we found out it's suicide, it's like, okay, fine, don't worry, that's not the climax. The climax is
no,
going to be 100 times worse than that. Like, you're going to see it coming. No, when it comes, you're going to feel it.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
But what did you like putting it all together in your head, man? Like, what was your experience with just how they sort of break that down? How this he's realizing, they have the really powerful scene of showing, actually, Vinod
What
ending his
happened?
life, which was pretty full on. But yeah, man, when it was all happening, like, what were you feeling during that time? Because that was a crazy experience for me. Like,
I I could not see this happening the way it did. Like even the
yeah,
start when you see him on the phone, right? Just before he sees what's about to come on TV, he's having
Yeah.
a happy conversation with someone
Oh,
and everything seems normal, right? And it seems like his relationships with the other cops are fine because they're like, oh, guy, I'm about to go into the toilet. Just look after my gun. And, there
yeah.
doesn't seem to be that conflict there anymore. So it sounds
No.
like maybe he's like got relationships now with all the cops. He's turned over a new leaf and he's like started something new. And then I didn't quite click who that girl was when it was playing on
So,
screen. And then it just slowly started happening when you see the look on his face and
yes.
the joy turns to like sadness and then kind of an inevitable choice in a way. It just absolutely floored me, man. I had so many theories for what this could have been. And I had them rehearsed in my head because I was like, there are 3 shots, there are 3 suspects, maybe they're all in it together. Like that was my main idea of what was going on.
Yes.
And then for it to have gone down this way, and I just think like getting to the twist, like it is so unexpected. And in that moment, like you almost wonder whether he had any other choice but to do what he did.
Mm,
Because I just don't know whether you could go on living with that knowledge that you have raped your niece, right?
yeah.
Like, and that you've ruined her, you've ruined your own brother's relationship with his own daughter. And so
Yeah.
here's a guy who's having a normal conversation, his life is turning around, and in the click of a finger, his whole life is just turned upside down. And look, he always deserves some sort of justice for what he's done because
Yeah.
you can't forget that he has done some heinous stuff. You can
No,
turn
no.
over a new leaf, but the harm he's already done, even if that girl was a random girl, deserves some sort of punishment. But it's hard to
Definitely.
imagine a crueler fate for him and for Pramod's character than what
Yeah.
than who he did that to, right? Like this is
Yeah.
as bad a punishment as you could give anyone because he's not being chucked in jail. He has done this to his own blood, and
Yeah.
like it is such a shocking kind of realization. And in my mind, I felt like he had no other choice but to do what he did, man.
Mm,
Like I don't know how you go on living with that realization, and there's no way to really come back from that and be able to look at your own brother in the face again. So man, it absolutely floored me. I was thinking about it
yeah.
like for a long time after watching that film because
Yeah.
it just absolutely took me aback, man.
Oh no, same. I saw this movie earlier in the day, and like I was like later on in the evening, I was like I was still thinking about it. I was going, "Oh my god, like what have I just witnessed?" Like, this is hours after I'd seen it because it hit me so hard. But the thing that they do so well in this, which touches on what we talked about, in the build up of his, redemption of who he was, right? He was starting to see the light and become a better person. So I
That's
think what's
it.
happened is like he's him at where he was in his life then, happy, Melanie had obviously created a great, positive impact in his life. And yeah, you can see that in the phone call, like he's smiling and they're talking to him like, he mentions like I'm gonna go somewhere with my wife or something like that. So maybe they
Yes,
were going to get
yes.
married or he's just talking about
Yes, that's
her
right.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he says that she's his wife. But like so you can tell, like, yeah, they have mended some, he's obviously established his reputation as a better cop and a better person in the community. So him to have gone through the transformation, to then at that point come to the realization of what he's done, completely broke who he was at that point. I think because if he found out at the
Yes.
point that he raped her, at that point he might have carried on because he wasn't the same person. He was,
True. That's
still that
true.
same brute. He was still that
Excellent
same,
point. Yeah.
hideous guy. So it was all worth it to get to that period of time because I think that's he wouldn't have killed himself if he wasn't the person he was, which is tragic,
Yes.
which is so tragic, but also fair in a way, right? Like he should not be in a situation like where he's before. He doesn't
Yes.
feel remorse for what he's done, you know.
True.
So it was tragic on all ends, and then just to see, like again, um, you know, acting from both Joju as Pranod and Vinod, like when Pramod has to go and ask the fellow cop, like, was this the girl? And he shows the video, it just like broke me, man. I was like,
That.
holy crap, because it is so hard. The whole twin aspect of this movie makes it
Yes.
so much more difficult because he's someone that's not seen his daughter for 17 years. Like, and some of the movie it establishes that, like, look, it's been 17 years. It's been a long time. I think she deserves to know who her father is. And just in that
Yes.
moment of that night, it all breaks for him. His whole
No,
thing broke
it,
because
it,
he can't face her anymore.
that's right, and he's been living his life since the point at which his wife and child left to make amends, to become a better human
Yeah.
being, to like stop his drinking and alcoholism, and to be a
Yes.
better man. And he had finally reached the position where he felt he was good enough to rekindle that relationship. And the wife thought he was finally good enough and had started
Yes.
forgiving him. And at that moment in time, he has to make the call that actually we can't ever meet and she can't ever see my face because
Your
she'll be
face.
reminded of the man who raped her. And that
Yeah.
is just shattering, man. Eh, No one is left better off in this film as a
No.
result of what happened, in a way. Like, Vinod goes through a redemption arc, but eventually what he did at the start comes back to haunt him. Pramod goes on this journey to become a better man, and for
Yeah.
what? At the end of the day, there's no redemption for him because he can't ever see his daughter again and she won't ever know who he is. And Malini, I guess
No,
she's
it's
got
a
away from her former husband, who was a terrible
yes.
person, but she had a few moments of joy with this other man and it's been taken away from her. So, I mean, it's a tragic film. It is a gut wrenching film and it's a brutal ending.
No, the end part really breaks everything to pieces, man. Like even the daughter, right? So she's gone through, even though she's singing on
Yes.
stage and making a successful, getting some kind of fame, she's got to live with the
Yes.
fact that this happened to her. Um,
Yes.
Pramod's
Yes.
wife, who probably wants her daughter to have a father in her life, which
Yes.
is why they wanted that to come back. She's left not knowing why this is going to happen, but it's not going to
Yes.
happen. So everyone's basically left off worse. And the way they did at the end with the whole mirror showing,
Yes. Yes.
so well done, man. Because it hit me on a level where I was like, so now every time that promoter is going to see himself, he's going to see himself as the person who raped his niece. Like that's it.
Yeah.
That I think that's what they were trying to do with the images,
Right.
you
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
like he
Yes.
can't see himself like as himself anymore because he looks just like his brother who committed this crime,
Yes.
the worst crime you could. So levels to it, man. It was
It
gut
was
wrenching
shocking,
and
man.
so
And
well
it,
executed. It's
this is, I mean,
unbelievable.
I struggle to think of a film that has kind of hit so hard with just its conclusion. Because I think this is a terrific film, but the ending just elevates it to another level, I think.
Oh yeah,
Like, it goes from a
yeah,
good film to a great film because of the quality of that ending, how they'd build it up. I don't think anyone would have predicted this ending, but it all makes sense in
no,
retrospect about what happens. So it's not kind of a random ending for the sake of shock
no,
value. I think there's a reason this has played out in the way it has. And it all makes sense in retrospect. I never questioned the logic of it all at the end. It
no,
was, it all felt like that was a natural conclusion and not just for shock value. So it's just
no, because
that
they,
ending elevates this to a
yeah,
whole other stratosphere, man.
definitely, man, because they give hints along the way, right? Like they showed,
Yes.
even though at the start the only redeeming quality that they had for Vinod was that he still loved his niece.
Yes.
He still cared
Yes.
for his niece, right? He goes back on that journey with the other senior cop, and he's just really a tag along in that, right? But then when he sort of sees, I don't think he says anything, but then after everyone leaves, he goes and he gives the gifts to the mother and the kid, and he just sees the kid waving.
Yes.
It was kind of like, okay, so he obviously does value this
He's
child. That he
yes.
values the child from back then. So it's not like he should feel remorse for what he's done. So
Yes.
all the clues are there. You're right. It's not just like that's why I think it's so perfectly executed because like these kind of endings, it's normally at the end you're like doesn't make sense or wait
Yep.
that character wouldn't do that or like wait what about
Yes.
dude you expect me to believe that this character would do this at this time. All these
Yes.
things come out in these movies with these kind of twists. It's very hard to get spot on. And this movie, I can't really find a flaw
No.
in any of it. The motivations are clear. The reason why he
Yep.
killed himself is clear,
Yep.
um, and we've shown that throughout the entire journey. So
Yes.
masterclass, man. It's fantastic. It's really really well done.
It is amazing, man. Like you have to give props to the thinking and the writing behind this that makes
Yeah,
this all feel like all of these insane events feel like a completely rational thing at the end, and that this
definitely, man.
conclusion is the natural cause of everything that Binod has done and gone through. It's just a beautifully structured, this whole film, and it lands. The punch lands at the end. Not one point after reflecting on this movie did I think as you were saying, it didn't make sense, or here's a plot hole,
No,
or this character wouldn't do this. It all felt perfectly likely and a series of actions and consequences that I could follow from start to end.
definitely, man. It's incredible film, and on top of that, man, like I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but this is definitely a lower budget kind of movie, and I don't think it
Yeah,
really even made all that much. Like I don't think this was really big success for some reason or the other. I don't know how, but I'm just saying I have one figure with IMDb, worldwide box office 34,000. That is not much at all,
34,000.
man. 34,000. I mean, I can't. This is wrong.
Yeah,
34,287 on IMDb.
wow,
That sounds astronomically low um, for a
that
movie with
is
this
that's
quality.
mind-boggling. Yes,
Yeah, if you are listening to this and haven't watched it for some reason, watch this. This is
yeah,
there's no
this is
reason
an
this movie.
experience.
There's no reason this movie should not be, making more money. It's been fantastic. But that's a good transition into a very promising D scale. I think once again for another great Malayalam movie. It seems like this is becoming a trend. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, man, where does this sit on your D scale? Where would you rank this movie?
Man, this is a high dynamite for me. This is an amazing film.
Yeah,
I didn't know where it was going to go. All I can say was I was gripped from start to end. It never let go of me once it had me hooked. The performance here is memorable. I'm not going to forget this performance or this actor, Joju George, anytime soon. I just think it showed how you can make a small scale film but still have incredible impact because, as we said, there's nothing flashy in any element of this film. It was so well
no,
grounded and it got the basic right. Tell an interesting story with interesting characters, and it
yeah.
delivered on that premise and was just well thought through from start to end, man. So straight up dynamite for me. Loved it. Brutal, but loved it.
Nah, yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely one at the end it hits you like a ton of bricks um after what's happened, but that's definitely a positive thing. I think we need a new ranking, something between like Dynamite and Dope. Because like all these movies seem to sit like really
But
high dynamite, like really,
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
good, high quality, and like for me to not if you ask me why is this a dope, I probably couldn't tell you a proper
No.
reason except for maybe there's a personal connection to it or something like that.
Yes,
Um
yes.
but technically it's masterful. It's it's a simple story, but at the same time it's not. It takes effort to put something like this and construct it in a way that's convincing, right? So
Yes.
it's a simple story told very creatively. Um, yeah, it's a very high dynamite for me as well, man. It's so good. It's I love noir movies. I love this kind of theme, and when you can walk away like this and be like, I never saw that coming, but it all makes sense, and it's hit me
Yeah.
like crazy. Yeah, it's one that I'm not going to really forget. When I think of noir movies, this is going to be the one I think of most likely at this
Yeah.
point, because
It just delivers on what it
it's
says it will do.
yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
more.
right. It does it perfectly, and there's not one scene or one actor or one actress who I think didn't bring it. Not one sort of it didn't drag either. Like it wasn't like
No.
unnecessary filler. Every
It's a
scene felt
taut
like there was a purpose
well,
for it.
yes.
Yeah.
No
Um,
excess in this.
No, it's actually pretty clean cut to be honest. It's very tight. So yeah, man, excellent. This was fantastic. Yeah,
Another
this
brilliant
is
Malayalam hit.
yep. Another one
This
to add to the collection, man. This is just getting ridiculous at this point. If you are listening, obviously drop us a note. Let us know what you thought about this movie. Let us know why this movie wasn't more popular. If that's
I'd
the
love
case.
to know that,
Um,
man.
yeah, I'd love to know. Like, and yeah, whatever thoughts you guys have. If there's anything that we missed, let us know. And because our favorite part has honestly been talking with you guys on the comments. So leave your comments on YouTube. Let us know where this falls in your disco and all that. And Sunny, man, this has been awesome. This has been one of the best movies to watch as of late. So yeah, man, awesome stuff.